My name is Ryan Moseley with NP Dodge here in Omaha, and I'm here with my friend Danielle from Oasis Senior Advising. So thank you for coming and hanging out for a bit.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk a little bit about senior population, that demographic. It's the baby boomers who are retiring, right? En masse, and it's a lot of people coming out of the work world and moving on to different living scenarios. And well, I guess that's a good segue for you. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm Danielle Knudson with Oasis Senior Advisors. I'm a senior advisor, which means we just kind of help navigate the senior living process, whether that's the search for the right community, but also kind of helping folks navigate all the steps involved with a big move. You are certainly familiar with helping clients with their big moves too. With our population, it's a little bit more specific because they also might be, in addition to selling a house, downsizing, financial planning, there's always some healthcare benefit or healthcare concepts to kind of consider. So we help navigate all of that. We're a free service, which I love. We work with over 70 communities in the greater Omaha area to help navigate that right fit. So we're kind of like a realtor, kind of like a social worker, a little bit family mediation, but also a referral partner to help them find the right tools and resources to help with this process. Yeah, a little bit of everything.
We're going to back up just a little bit, then we'll get back into the other things. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're from, how you got where you are now.
Yeah, that's a great question. Originally from Omaha, I've lived here my whole life, so I'm very familiar with the Omaha area. Consider it to be a great network of partners and friends and family for myself, but have been in the senior living kind of arena, I would say, about the last 15 years, either working directly in a community, helping families transition into senior living, or bringing services from a sales perspective kind of into senior living or skilled care. And before that, nonprofit and education. Similar to yourself.
So the services you offer, there's a lot of different businesses that are coming out helping with this demand because it's a lot.
It is.
What do you think sets you apart from some of those other businesses?
I think we are detail oriented. A lot of times a call comes to us from maybe a hospital or a rehab setting where the social workers are involved and saying, our time here is limited and next steps like going home isn't viable. So can you help this family? So those are a lot of our calls. And I think because we're so proficient in knowing all the communities in town, but also having all the resources, that really helps us. It helps families who might be in crisis mode kind of make it a little less terrible, or sometimes it can be overwhelming and quite frightening. Families do this sometimes once, and so they don't know what they don't know, and so we're just really helping navigate all the things that go into making a move into maybe assisted living or memory care community. And what makes us kind of stand out is that in addition to knowing all the communities, Jenny Trebald, our owner, and myself have walked through this with our own family members too, with healthcare crisis or dementia diagnoses, and really understand what it feels like. We can empathize, and also helping them navigate all the resources needed to make sure it goes as smoothly as possible.
Which can be difficult.
And
that kind of leads to one of the other questions I was going to ask. A senior, a family who are maybe ahead of the curve a little bit as far as planning versus behind the curve, like what does that look like?
That's huge.
How can you help people get ahead of that curve a little bit?
I always come at it from the perspective of what would I want for my mom and dad? And for them, for the lad being in their mid to late 70s, for the last 10 years or so, we've been having the conversations. And as the adult children are, tend to be kind of involved in this process, that would be my recommendation. Doing this pre-planning, whether it's contacting their agent and having some comps done and look at the value of their asset. A lot of folks, this is their major asset, is their home, and that's what they'll be needing to pay for senior living. So having that analysis done, look at the big picture of their healthcare needs, what kind of services are needed today, not also planning for the good days, but really the bad days. If there's a diagnosis like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, we really want to be planning for those bad days with healthcare and meeting those needs from a healthcare perspective. So maybe today independent living is appropriate, but do we also need to be looking at communities that have assisted living and memory care, so we have to move less frequently? So we're making kind of those plans early on.
Okay.
Maybe talking with a financial planner early on to see what those assets are and how they can be managed or planned for. Some folks need Medicaid in the future to pay for senior living. And to do some of that planning, you should be doing that 5 years or more in advance.
5 years.
5
Okay.
years, yeah.
A lot of people don't have that maybe foresight, or they believe that they're able to stay where they're at forever. We've worked together with a couple clients who maybe were behind the curve a little bit on the planning stages, which can make it a little more difficult. I've been able to help them, come in and clean out some of the stuff that's accumulated, do a owner flip of the house so they're not selling for cash as is, because sometimes they don't come out as well as they could if they do that. So we've worked together on a couple of those scenarios where it's behind the curve a little bit.
Behind the curve and kind of in crisis mode. So anytime we move in crisis mode, it becomes a lot more challenging. So we can do some of that pre-planning, and that's always most advantageous to the client. And with those cases that we worked on together, they came out so much ahead working with you on having more assets on the back end too to pay for that senior living, which is really the primary concern for a lot of folks, is the sticker shock of senior living.
Is there other things that people can do to help prepare for this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you think of it as kind of this long-term need for care, taking care of yourself today is certainly beneficial, and making sure your health is in good shape, but also getting those relationships with your doctors. If there is any diagnoses, underlying diagnoses, just keeping on top of those and managed well. If you're the adult child, maybe it's time to start being involved in those conversations with our parents. Maybe it's time to start attending appointments just so you are aware of what's going on. Again, trying to eliminate that crisis mode of a fall, a hospital, a rehab stay, because those decisions just become so much more challenging if we have to do them on the fly. Well in advance, even if you're thinking of senior living a few years out. We are seeing such there's wonderful communities in town, and several of them, but sometimes we're seeing a shortage of the community apartment that's really desired by somebody. So if you're looking for that larger 2-bedroom, we might see a 1 or 2 year wait in some communities. So it isn't too early to start looking.
And if even out here, there's lots of 55 plus places that are being built.
For sure.
Whether it's small villas or apartment living kind of thing. So there's lots of options still being built, but still waiting for a wait list, right?
Still a wait list for some options.
So what does it look like once a family reaches out to you? What does that process look like?
Yeah, it usually starts with a phone call, either from the client themselves, sometimes that adult child, or maybe a social worker that's involved. That first phone call is getting some information. Our goal in that conversation is to get a little bit of the healthcare picture. What's wanted by the client is certainly paramount. So whether that's location or budget or price, maybe we're looking around where the kids live, or where they're familiar with living. And we will visit with them on the phone, but also in person, because it's really important when we're looking at the healthcare piece too, to make sure we have the right fit. Some residents are looking for certain activities or faith activities in their community. So we can really narrow that down with over 70 communities. Let's make a shorter list of 3 or 4. For there, we'll go tour with families, help them ask the right questions, and then kind of keep track of those answers, because it is kind of challenging to navigate. Like your folks who are looking for new homes, if you've looked at 6, which one had that one thing we loved, and they can't keep track of it. So that's the same for us too. We're helping them navigate it and keep track. Follow
a lot of education.
A lot of education, for sure. Yeah, you bet.
What are some of your long-term professional goals when it comes to working with this population?
As I age too, being in my 50s, I've seen that shift of being a little bit more empathetic than when I started in my 30s. I can certainly understand more that aging is a process. I'm really empathetic about how their needs change too. In a previous in life of mine, working with teenagers and education, we're certainly educated on adolescent development. When we talk about our older population, there's a whole nother lifespan there that they're going through and experiencing those changes. I like to keep myself educated on what diseases they might be seeing, but also just the emotional piece of working with this population is important to me, that I can be empathetic professionally, just kind of help them navigate what might be coming next. So staying aware of our community resources and organizations too is important for me, like our Alzheimer's associations and things like that, so we can keep learning.
Yeah. Okay, good. Before we get to the last question, is there any other little tidbits or nuggets or anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on some of the trends we're seeing too, but we're seeing a lot of 55 plus, we're seeing a lot of patio, standalone housing for seniors, which is great. We've got some new ones coming up out west, and they will continue to develop because of this generation being so large. So I think people have kind of a connotation of senior living of these individuals who are 70, 80 might be remembering what they saw for their grandparent. Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly different. So don't be afraid of senior living, I would say. Be open to the idea of maintenance-free living. The peer-to-peer relationships that develop is something it's kind of hard to get in a packet or see in some information. But really going out and touring some of these places is a huge step because you see the benefits that you might not have thought of. I would always recommend kind of not being averse to going to look at some of these communities.
So speaking of that, kind of makes me think of my own family, and my dad's older and maybe needing to go somewhere. His philosophy is just send me into the woods with a can of beans and that'll be it.
Right.
So what do you do with some of that resistance or pushback you get?
Yeah, usually I put it back on the client or the potential resident of tell me some things that aren't working for you at home. And they might say they're tired of mowing, they're tired of shoveling, they're tired of house maintenance and putting money into their home. They'd really like to be freed up and live a maintenance-free life. Or maybe they're really concerned, and sometimes they're not even sharing with adult kids. I have had some falls here. I did fall down the steps. I did get a little nervous when I fell and couldn't get up. So sometimes when I ask those questions, like what isn't working for you here, they know the answers, and they're it's usually open to sharing. And then as a problem solver, I want to be able to say, here's what could solve that for you. And sometimes they think also they're a little nervous about senior living because they want to leave it for you, these assets. And I encourage them, this is what we've all saved for. This is what we're saving for to take care of ourselves as we age. I would encourage them to talk with a financial planner to see how something like a senior living move actually could be manageable. When we think about how the home still needs to be maintained, or if they're bringing caregivers into the home, sometimes the move is actually more economical than they might have thought. Okay.
So those are, planting the seed is probably a good start with a lot of individuals like that.
Yeah.
To kind of get
and with some of our wait lists being a few years, it's not too early to go look at some of these communities. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So on a lighter note, some funner questions to end with. I like to get recommendations for myself. There's always new stuff. Even though I'm from Omaha too, there's always new stuff all the time.
For sure.
I want to hear favorite restaurant, favorite outdoor activity, and your favorite place to travel.
Oh, wow. Well, gosh, I am a mom of 4 boys, so our activities tend to be based around when they were young, sporting events in town. So certainly going to the Storm Chasers or with the College World Series coming, those are always fun activities for us to do. Now that I have 3 grown kids living downtown, we are headed downtown more than ever to kind of explore those restaurants and do those things out, downtown. But with the growth out west, we're kind of in the middle of that and kind of central Omaha. So we're enjoying seeing the new things come out. Restaurant-wise, we live kind of by Boys Town, so we like to get on our e-bikes, and so we can explore from a restaurant perspective. Close to us, so we're experiencing.
Do you have a favorite nearby?
30 Hop is near us now. That's kind of a fun one to go to, and not too bad if we go through Boys Town, and we can be there in a few minutes. So that's a fun one. And then there's a couple. There's an area like in Sterling Ridge area that's kind of nice. There's a couple options there as well.
How about travel? Beyond Omaha.
Oh, anywhere is fun for us. Just I feel like being in the middle of the country, you have to kind of go sometimes and get out. Actually, tomorrow morning I'm headed to San Francisco to visit family. So we're there for the rest of the week and having a graduation. And San Francisco is always one of my favorite places to go. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks.
So if you have any questions for yourself or a family member, feel free to reach out to Danielle. Yeah. If you want to talk about the house that they may be moving out of, I'm more than happy to help out, have conversations with what we could do to maybe update the home so the equity can be built and kept with the family and not sold off as is to a flipper. I've noticed this generation, they moved into a home in the 50s and 60s and they stayed,
right,
compared to younger kids, they kind of move around a little bit more.
Right.
But those homes are outdated sometimes and need to be renovated
to
bring full value. So if you want to talk about that, reach out to me. Danielle, I'll put her contact information down in the comments. You can reach out to her if you have questions, and either one of us would be happy to help you out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
thank you. Thanks for having me.